You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome. I'm Esther Awoniyi. Many thanks for joining us. On today's show, we'll explore the agenda for Nigeria's agriculture sector. As always, you can join today's conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Awoniyi. Now, as Nigerians await the announcement of President Buhari's cabinet, Emmanuel Ijewere, CEO of Best Food Farms, and Chike, Nwagwu, CEO of Novus Agro, join me to discuss the agenda for the agri sector. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on today's show.
Thank you.
Let's start with, before we go into what the agenda should be, and of course, it's obviously should be a multi-stakeholder engagement, but let's talk about some of those in the last 4 years, some of the achievements, some of the big wins, if you will, that this administration has achieved. Chike, let me start with you.
I think one of the biggest ones, but really quietly done, was the concessioning of the silos, around the country. Nigeria has about 28 federal government silos, capacity of about 1 million plus. And for several years, they've been lying fallow. Even the oldest ones, which are about 25 years old, had been lying there unused, So the federal government finally decided that they would concession them out. And after a bit of up and down, it's been done. Silos have been handed over to the private sector. Now, what we expect is that it would form an important part, in reducing post-harvest losses and being the bedrock of any kind of commodity exchange, The other one probably, like we said, Anchor Borrowers program, being able to get credit directly to farmers and integrate the whole value chain in that particular process, Some of these things might not have been, they're not like 100% done,
Okay, but they
are
notable
key steps in getting us.
Okay, Emmanuel.
I think Chike seems to have gotten quite a number of them, but I would look at what has happened now in respect of creating consciousness in agriculture again. More and more people who you never thought will ever consider agribusiness are coming on board. Okay. That has been achieved, and that consciousness has to be sustained. You also have the challenge of the fact that government reacts very quickly to protect farmers in some areas. Many of the things that the central bank has done in saying that there's a list of 41 businesses or other commodities that cannot be imported with Nigeria's foreign exchange is a very, very important one. It encourages the local producers to do more on that. But still going back to the issue of consciousness, younger people are beginning to see in small measures the profitability in agribusiness. And they have come to their consciousness that agribusiness is not just farming. There's so much there. And like Chike mentioned, the issue of the value chain is so huge that we've not got enough people going there. Yeah. And I think a lot of this has been achieved within this period. It's now a question of consolidating it and moving it to the next level.
So that, because I know that for a while, for a long time, the government wanted to get people, farmers and will-be farmers, to think about the agriculture sector as a business, not just something that some subsistence farmers or smallholder farmers do. So we can say, I agree on that, that we have changed that narrative in the country.
Yes.
Okay. So Chike, let's, as we're waiting the agenda, where should we start? Or would you say that we should, like Emmanuel said, to begin to just build on, scale the success, some of the success stories that we have already, or there's some other areas? Because I know that, there's still some other areas that need, to be worked on, even, new introduction of new ideas and innovation.
I think the critical thing at the stage where we are is that we have to recognize that arithmetic progression, will not work. We need bold new ideas. The challenges facing agriculture in Nigeria are huge. I think the biggest is the population growth rate, right? So any kind
from a food security perspective.
From a food security perspective. So I think we're just at the verge of an emergency in reality, because if our population is going to double in the next 25 years, so to speak, are we doing the things that are required for us to keep up and probably surpass the demand for food over that period. I don't think we're doing enough. We've done a bit to lay the foundation, you know, but now is the time to have bold new ideas to take this forward. I was giving an example earlier on, and I said, look at Qatar, you know, because they had a blockade 2 years ago. They were net importers of milk. Today, they're actually net exporters of milk, producing over 1 million tons of milk every year, you know. And that's just about what Nigeria's own demand. So it's not that it can be done, you know. If we actually say that we want to do it, I'm sure that in 2 years, we probably will be importing zero milk, you know, and be a net exporter. And this for every other thing. It's a shame that for staples like maize, you know, we're still importing some of that, yeah. For palm oil, where trees have been planted for several, we're still importing, you know. So the next minister, the next agenda has to be bold. You know, unfortunately, it will not be funded, so it has to be done with policy, a clear idea of what needs to be done, what reliefs have to be given, what incentives are on the table, you know, and get people moving in that direction.
Now, Emmanuel, let me ask you this, because, I mean, we're talking earlier about the just concluded AFDB meetings, and some of the conversations I had there then was the introduction of using technology to scale, to increase farmers' productivity. And there's something that the Korean government, I mean, just partnered with the AFDB using drone technology to, increase farm productivity. I'm just wondering, shouldn't we be having those kinds of, conversations here? Yes, we know that, we have small-scale farmers. We're still talking about getting them good seeds and fertilizers at the basic level. But those conversations, are getting, more complex, as it were. We're talking technology now. How do we begin to have those conversations and also, do those things ourselves?
I agree with the technology issue, but let me come back to Chike, just follow up on what he has said earlier. Now, there is a very quiet revolution that's taking place that we really don't know yet. We all know in this country that agriculture starts from the village. The village is located in a local government, not in Abuja or central part of Lagos. With the new arrangement now for local governments to be revamped, the 774 local governments, to be given direct responsibility. You couple that with what is already happening now. What is happening is that a lot of consciousness has been brought to the issue of creating clusters or cooperatives in various local government areas in respect of crops and so on. It's now marrying those with the local government people. Once you are able to do that, you can now create yardsticks and say to them, what you are good for is this. What quantity did you produce last year? What quantity are you producing this year? It will be a partnership between the private sector, because every farmer is a private sector player. Bring them together. That's the silent revolution we're having now. It's now capitalizing on that. It's a very good thing that the local governments are not being funded directly, which means that they have no reason whatsoever to give excuses. Now, coming to the one about the technology and the drones, that's one thing that excites me. Nigeria was not part of the first, second, or third revolution, but Nigeria is part of this fourth revolution. And our people are smart, especially our young people. All our young people, especially those below the age of 50, they are really, really tech smart. It's a question of having the courage to use them, make it available to them. I assure you that if there's the right intention of government to give them the environment, Nigerians will build the drones here in no time at all. And some have already done it. So these are having the courage to say Nigeria can do it. Like the one that hurts me about this one and not being part of this African economic zone, is it makes us look stupid, because we as a people, we lead in Africa. Go to Africa, other African countries, they look up to Nigerians. And now yet, our government feels that Nigerians are afraid of competing with other Africans. I believe the Nigerians, when they compete, they are right up there. That is a very, very strong issue. So the tech issue should be tied to its use. Not tech for the sake of tech, but for the sake of improving the livelihood of the people at the village level, because the drones will operate in villages, not in not in Abuja.
Absolutely. Many times we keep talking about we need more government policy. We need more. Do we need more government policy? But I'm thinking the ones we already have. To what extent, are they impacting on farmers on the ground, food production?
I think the thing is to be able to look at the basket of what we have. Some things have worked, some things obviously haven't. Some things work at cross purposes. We're talking about drones, and suddenly you find that there's a regulation that limits people from flying their drones, even in rural areas in Nigeria. And it's a different arm of government that is enforcing that. So we have to look at the basket of what we have and say, look, let's pick the simplest ones that have worked. We need a broad framework that would say, look, we want to produce X, Y, Z, and we're going to do it within this time frame. This is what needs to be done. Do you need water resources to do it? Why are we still irrigating only about 2% of the land holding? Is that part of the agricultural policy? We need a minister or a policy that doesn't ask what. We've already talked about what the problem is, but says how. How we're going to solve all these problems. And it has to be measurable. It has to be easily measurable, let's put it that way. Scalable.
For you, when, let's say we get the new minister, what is that first action that you'd like for him or her to take?
So, look, anything that would increase yield, because when we talk about primary production, yield is probably the biggest issue. Our cows produce maybe 1.5 liters. In Kenya it's about 40 liters a day. Now, what is it that would increase that yield, that number, make it jump? You plant maize and you get 3 tons to the hectare. In other places you get as much as 15, 20 tons. What are we going to do? Is it seed variety? Is it what exactly? I think we have to go down to the basics. Let's not talk broad policy. Let's talk practical policy. What are the hurdles that are currently in place that are preventing us from getting where we want to get to?
Okay. Well, we need to take a short break at this point. We'll come back and pick up from where we left off. We made some good points there, the hurdles, and of course we know what to do, as in just how to organize and get those things done. I've been speaking to Emmanuel Ijewere. He's the CEO of Best Food Farms, and Chike, CEO of Novus Agro, looking at the agenda for Nigeria's agriculture. If you're just joining us, Emmanuel Ijewere, CEO of Best Food Farms, and Chike, CEO of Novus Agro, are with me today, and we're discussing the agenda for Nigeria's agriculture sector. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time so far. We've talked about where we should, the new cabinet, the new minister should start from, and at the heart of our conversation is increasing farmers' productivity from a food security point of view, producing enough for Nigerians, for Nigeria to eat, and then of course also export. So Emmanuel, let me start with you. We're talking earlier about how to increase production in many crops. I guess the ones that we have comparative advantage in, maize, sesame seeds, cassava, etc. How do we begin to increase those numbers?
The first thing is to get whichever minister is coming in, or any new structure, political structure, to have the right attitude. It's not just the money. It's not policy. We have a lot of policies. But the attitude, for example, is to say to yourself, I am not successful unless I'm able, within this time frame, increase the amount of food available to Nigerians. The attitude now becomes to challenge yourself to achieve that. Now, it's no longer political statements that are made in public. The example that was given by Chike, let's take the tomato, for example. Tomato today, only 1% of tomato growers are using improved seedling. The world between improved seedling and the ones they are using now is a wide one. Now there are about 6, 7, 8 metric tons per hectare. Yeah. Give them the improved seedling at a price that is just 5 or 10% beyond what they have now, which they cannot afford. Their yield will go up to about 40, 50
Is that something the government can afford to do, or would it need assistance from the private? What would it take for that to happen?
What we take, first of all, is the attitude which works down to the local government. Put them together in clusters. There are people, there are organizations that are prepared to give them loans specifically to buy those seeds and pay them back when they have harvested. Farmers are not really beggars. They are very hard-working people. But give them an opportunity to move to the next level. But you ask them to now bring that money, and they cannot afford it at the beginning. They have school fees to pay. They have to feed their families and so on and so forth. They will say, I'll do what I did last year, I'll manage. But give them that seed that moves him from about 8 metric tons per hectare. With the same effort, he will get about 30, 40 metric tons per hectare. These are issues, and these are things that the people in Abuja cannot really comprehend unless the local government people comprehending it. Local governments will remain poor as long as the farmers who form the vast majority of their people are poor. But improve their lifestyle, they will start paying little taxes. Local governments now become real government. As of today, our local government should not even attach the word government to it.
You know, the CBN has a number of credit schemes through the Bank of Industry that provides credit to these farmers, even like under the Anchor Borrowers program at affordable interest rates. And I know it's extended to rice and some other crops. Do we need to expand this, Chike?
Yeah, I think...
Can the CBN afford? Do you think the CBN can afford to do it? Because last time I saw, was it 82 billion naira that was expanded?
I think, beyond the CBN, I know there are quite a number of private initiatives, that have looked at the model and, are looking and tweaking it and actually giving loans to farmers, and this is outside of government loans or something. So the Anchor Borrowers program was a catalyst, to open people's eyes that farmers are
private
lendable.
Private
sector. There's actually a way to lend to farmers, and totally de-risk that particular risk. So I think that's what we expect, government to have a policy, move a bit on it as a catalyst, and then let the rest of the private sector do that. But without question, any which way you look at it, credit is very important to farmers, especially at the stage where we are.
Okay, but would you say that because we've talked about access to credit for a very long time in this country, and I know that every year money is given to farmers. Would you say that now it's a lot better than it was in the past?
It is.
In the last 4 years, would you say it's a lot better, access to credit to farmers? Okay, so what do we need to do now?
Percentage-wise, percentage-wise as a percentage of the entire population is abysmal, But if you look at increase, in terms of where we were before and where we are today, it's really...
Now, Emmanuel, we're having these conversations at a time when the African continent is moving to integrate, Africa. We're looking at 90% borderless Africa, free movement of goods and people. That's the African Continental Free Trade Area. Nigeria is yet to sign on yet, but whether or not Nigeria signs on, it's already coming to full force. We're here July next month. This is going to kick in. So, and this could change a lot of things for agriculture. And we've had conversations about how this will also be a good time to integrate African farmers into not just regional but also global value chains. At the Nigeria level, what are the conversations that we're having? How ready are we for this when it happens?
Nigeria is always ready for any situation because they are very fast at growing into any strange situation they find themselves in. I would say that for Nigerians. You see, when it comes to Africa, we believe that it's even easier for us. As of today, look at the statistics. The amount of rice, of cassava, of gari, and all our staple food that goes to feed the rest of West Africa is humongous. They come through the borders, and you just go on the Badagry Express Road, go to Maradi, or just outside Sokoto. These are things that are happening on day in, day out. Nigerians are exporting and feeding the rest of West Africa. But why should we be afraid to compete with them when you're, in fact, you're already on top of it? Yes, we bring some items in from there, which is the whole idea of this integrating. Whatever you are specialized at, we buy from you. Whatever we are specialized at, you buy from us. And there are very many things we are specialized at. even the ones that we are not really into that much, is because we've not allowed the private sector to thrive. We have not allowed the private sector to thrive because all kinds of rules. You want to get fertilizer into Nigeria, all of a sudden, for security reasons, I respect that. You say that no importation of fertilizer because it could be used for weapons. All right, the stomach is empty and you are unsafe. I agree. Security is important. But there should have been a discussion between the military, those in charge of security, and the agricultural people. Find a way where Nigerians can find themselves in a win-win situation. Those who bring this in will be specialized and let everybody know about them. But because of the situation, this kind of attitude, I am a military man, security is above everything else. And therefore, the Minister of Agriculture, how can we go and challenge soldiers? That is attitude. We need to now sit down together, and we have not been able to achieve that. Those are the issues that we are beginning to see. Allow that to happen. West Africa and the whole of Africa. Like I was telling you, let Ivory Coast be the biggest exporter of rice today. Nigerians will go and buy those places and send the rice here. If they see the kind of rice they're doing, that Nigeria itself will quickly improve. Yep. So if the whole idea is to bring all of us together as one family, it will be a huge family where Nigeria will thrive. Let us stop being afraid of our own competencies.
Chike, quickly, your thoughts on the Continental Free Trade Area?
Well, like Dr. Ijewere has already said, Nwagwu in Kano is the largest grains market in Africa, So it's a given. These things are happening. It's just that it's not happening with the rest of the world recognizing it, or even our country recognizing that it happens. So there is a lot of movement of grains. Whether we choose to exclude ourselves or not, it will continue to happen, I think competition has never lost anybody anything. It makes you better, So we should embrace the competition. We should embrace the new markets that are being opened to us. And generally speaking, that would improve, like we keep saying, it would improve productivity, because people will get a bit more competitive. All the people that we've been encouraging to go into agriculture would see markets beyond Nigeria, and they would compete. And there are some things that we produce here that Nigerians don't or have stopped, feeding off of, but it's still in great demand outside the borders. So markets would be discovered, in the process. Yeah.
Emmanuel, let me quickly ask you about, research, research and development within the agriculture space. That's something we talk about. I'm not sure in terms of traction and impact on the ground. What can you tell us about that? And perhaps for the next 4 years, should that also be a key focus? It
should be very, very important. A lot has been achieved. I think the best amongst them is IITA. That's because they are funded from abroad. The other ones we have in Nigeria, some of them have some of the most competent people, very, very high quality people there, but they are not funded. Their salaries are even not paid for a long time. They have no equipment to move around. They cannot really do much. If we now take them seriously, in fact, in agriculture, bring them all under one umbrella, like they did in Brazil, Embrapa. Bring them together as one big, gigantic organization that have a number of branches. So there's a one-stop shop for everything that has to do with agriculture. That is, we have talked about that for many, many years. Bring them together, take them a lot more seriously. There are many universities as well.
Yeah, I was going to go to that. We have universities, yeah.
Yes. They bring them all together under one umbrella. We have some of the brightest brains in the country, but they are discouraged.
So lack of funding,
yes,
and just political will to just get, take it seriously. Because if we're talking about, improving yield, improving seed quality, and etc., that would be a good place to start.
Absolutely. And then link them up with the private sector. Who are the users of all this? Government in Abuja does not need the research on cassava, but the farmer, who is a private sector person, needs the research. So that is this issue. Bring them together to work together. IITA said they have 260 research findings that are useful to farmers. Where are they? They are in their drawers. And many of the others. NIHOT, for example, they came up with a fantastic thing on this tutor absoluta we had. It was never moved to the next level. Rather than bringing in chemicals from abroad. They did simple thing, just water, detergent, stone, and light.
So pay more attention to homegrown solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today, and of course, we are awaiting the minister and the new cabinet, and hopefully, some of these ideas, recommendations that you made here will be part of what we're going to see in the next 4 years. Thank you for your time today. I've been speaking to Emmanuel Ijewere, CEO of Best Food Farms, and Chike, Nwagwu, CEO of Novus Agro. We've been looking at the agenda, setting the agenda for Nigeria's agriculture sector for the next 4 years. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember that you can watch the show at 5 p.m. West African time daily and have access to all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website, that's cnbcafrica.com. You can also stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can send tweets to my Twitter handle too, at Esther or Awoniyi. From myself and the team, it's bye for now.